Welcome to the demonstration of the installing SobekCM Digital Repository. This is for version 4.0 alpha. So I'm going to step you through the setup wizard here. So this one setup wizard now installs everything. This installs your SQL database, your main web application, the builder bulk loader service, and the Solr full text indexes. So this is a big change with version 4.0 that one setup will install every component and do much of the initialization and configuration that you used to have to do by hand. So we'll hit next. We'll accept the license agreement. So there's multiple different ways of how you can install the system. So the first one says full install. This is where all of the components will be installed on this single machine. This is great, especially early on for doing testing or demoing the application and the whole system. But once you really get into production, you're more likely to start working with a typical two-machine configuration, where you have a web server that has access, of course, to the internet, and you also have a back data server, which is behind your firewall, that provides a lot of the data, the SQL, the full text indexes, etc., to the web server. So this first one is for a single computer installation. The next two is for this configuration I'm just describing. The first one you would run on your web server, and you would run it again on the back data server to install those components. Finally, you can also look at your advanced install. So if you are familiar with the system and you'd like to do something more particular, let's say we did not want to install Solr indexes in this one machine for whatever reason. Maybe we're not going to take advantage of full text searching in this instance. We can disable any one of our features. So we'll go with the setup initially at least, and it asks us now to enter our database information. So we will enter the database that we have. So what it's going to do is going to go out and look at this database, and if there is no database installed, it will create a new one. If there's an existing version 4.0 database already there, then nothing will change. It'll just help connect to it and help you do the configurations for other components that we might be adding. So we can hit test connection if we like. So go out and verify connection successful. We'll hit next. So now we've entered all the information, sort of how we want to do the setup, and we pointed it at the database. So it gives us a list of prerequisites here. So the first list, these are required for installations. So we have .NET 4.5 is installed on this machine, and the IIS is also installed. However, the SQL database that I pointed to does not have full text indexing enabled, so I would have to clear this error before I would be able to move ahead. The things here at the bottom are just the optional ones. So the builder bulk loader utilizes GhostScript and ImageMagick to do some of the manipulation on uploaded digital resource files. But these can be installed at any time, these optional components, and will not stop this installation at all. So we will go back and let's reconfigure our setup. This time I'm going to say let's do a full installation on this machine, which will now include the Solr indexes. We have a different database here which does support full text indexing. Hit next. Alright, so now we do need Apache Tomcat because we've included Solr indexing, but we also now have the SQL. So everything is cleared, we're good to continue, and the next is here. Should point out if there's any of these that are not, any of the required that are not fulfilled, there's a little help button here which will pull up a web page which gives you links to installation and a little bit of information about them. And we can look at that later on in this demo. So we'll hit next and move ahead with our requested setup. So this is a chance to really begin the customizing the look or feel of your instance right out of the gate. So we'll go ahead and put in our institution or project name. And go ahead and give it an abbreviation, which will be an abbreviation associated with this instance. And we'll see that it's quite prevalent when you start looking at the interface. So we'll use Puddle here. Hit next. So this is where do we want the application to be installed. We requested the entire thing be installed, so it's asking us, do you want this installed at a root directory or do you want it to be installed at a subfolder? So basically if you're looking at your URL and it looks like it's in a subfolder, that would be your virtual directory. We're going to leave this blank, which will install it at the default website itself. So the web application will run under a service account. So we're going to use my own account here on this machine now. Again, if you're moving into a production environment, you'd probably want to switch to an actual service account with a non-expiring password. So we'll go out and we'll verify our password, so that password was okay. Now we're looking at configuring the builder, which is also going to be installed here. So again, the builder runs under a service account as well. This can be a different service account. It's not really necessary, but you have the ability to separate those powers between a builder and the web by 2 service accounts. Certainly a single service account works just fine. And again, if we were moving this into a production environment, we would want to have a non-password expiring account here, and probably not when tagged to my personal account, but we'll go ahead with that as well. So we've entered all the information, we've cleared then all the prerequisites that are required, and we'll hit install. So this process only takes about 1.5 or 2 minutes to do the actual installation. It's installing all the components that we just looked at and doing much of the configuration required. So while that's installing, let's take a look at the system requirements. If you're missing a system requirement and you click the help button that appears in that case, you'll be brought to this page. So these are essentially, first it just talks about basic server information. But basically, these are the 4 prereqs that we saw previously. The .NET Framework version 4.5. Let me allow this to be elevated to continue the installation. You won't see that if you're not using user access control. Okay, so the first requirement is .NET Framework 4.5. This is actually required to even run the installation installer. And here's where you can download it from Microsoft.NET, and that's quite a quick little install. SQL Server install, again, there's 2 free links that you can download. This is 2008, this is 2012. This is a free install, however, this process is by far the lengthiest part of the installation process. It can take somewhere between 30 minutes to an hour for SQL Server to really install and then to get the patches. So after you install all 3 of these, really, you'll probably want to be asking Windows to run its updates as well. So prepare to spend a little time getting these prereqs installed if you don't currently have them anywhere. And finally, of course, you need your web application. We'll need IIS 7 or IIS 7.5 on your Microsoft web server, Windows server. Again, here's some notes on how to install it, but all of these items are free or are previously installed with Microsoft. And the last thing, which is also free, is the Apache Tomcat. This is used for the Solar Leucine indexes used for full text searching. So this is free as well. Here's a link to get to the download site, and you can use either version 7 or 6. The rest of the indexing information will come along in the setup, so you really just need to make sure you have it installed if you want to run the full text indexes. So those are the 4 big requirements. So let's pop this up. It looks like our install has finished. It's telling us to register with the instance, and this is checked. So we'll try to launch SobekCM into a new browser window. So let's click Finish. So it'll take a little bit of time to connect initially. Usually it connects right away. If there's a problem, you can do a couple different things. One thing, really just restarting your machine will often clear any problems. But you can also go into IIS. So we'll see if this connects. Otherwise, we might need to restart the IIS as well. So I'll pull this up since we're waiting here. We got the, oh good, it connected and everything. So we can see that our customizations have now taken effect. So it says, we said prestigious University Digital Library, so that appears in the footer, it appears in the header. It also creates a banner for this front collection that includes prestigious University Digital Library as well. Of course, this can all be changed once you're into the system, but at least it gets you started. And you see there's the abbreviation we used, so that's what it's called for my Puddle or Puddle Home. So it'll bring you to this registration screen. You do want to register as soon as you can. Registration, since this will be the first user in this database, by default they'll be assigned the system administration roles. So we'll finish our registration and click Submit. And we can just go right to the home. Everything should already be configured for us. So now we're looking at the new home page. Installation is complete. We can start doing any other configurations, start looking at doing uploads, configuring your home page for anything you wanted to do. Hit save. All right, so there, installation is now complete. If you had any problems, like I said, you could restart your machine, or occasionally you'll need to come into IIS and you can really just click here and say stop or click restart for your web server. Generally it starts fine and just takes a little bit of time to do that initial launch. So that concludes our installation, and we'll be following this up with some other videos on your next steps. So good luck installing.